Welcome back to the Operation Freedom YouTube channel. What we do here is shine the light of truth on the deep state. They hate that. We do it figuratively with our presentations. We do it literally with our sponsor's product, PatriotLegacy.com. PatriotLegacy.com, featured product of theirs, the Patriot Beacon. 6 overall lighting functions. In addition, solar powered, don't need batteries. You can charge your other devices like your phone from it. In addition, you got a compass, you got a window breaking hammer, and you got a seatbelt cutter. Plus, if those deep state dweebs get just a little bit too close to you, blast them with this. They're gone. Go to patrioticlegacy.com, patrioticlegacy.com. Get yourself, your kids, your grandkids, your car. Can carry it with you anytime. patrioticlegacy.com, the Patriot Beacon. So, the Covington attorneys who he hired filled out the forms wrong for this. And General Flynn never did any business with the country of Turkey. His group, his Flynn Intel group, did business with a company in Turkey, but not owned by the Turkish government. He didn't even have to file these forms. He was told by his attorneys to file these forms. He had to. He did not have to. And then, when they did file them, his attorneys filled them out wrong. And then to get themselves out of the hook, they told him to plead guilty to something he was innocent of. To the best of my recollection and from my re-examination of the emails from August 2017, the vast majority of email traffic between me and Covington during that time was focused on the creation of my legal defense fund to pay my skyrocketing legal fees, by that time approaching $3 million. To that end, we put our Alexandria, Virginia home on the market in late November or early December 2017 timeframe to help pay the rising legal bills that we were incurring. We then moved to our family home in Rhode Island. In November 2017, the special counsel's office created sudden and intense time pressure on me to plead guilty. On November 4, 2017, I believe my Covington attorneys told my wife and me that the special counsel's office wanted to conduct a proffer session with me. That's an information gathering session. They told me the special counsel's office had yet to make a decision about how to proceed with me, and doing a proffer session would be a good way to let the special counsel prosecutors get to know the real Mike Flynn. During this same meeting, my previous lawyers, Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony, proceeded to walk us through a series of items essentially describing the risks of doing the proffer. From this meeting, I believe the following day, I agreed to do the proffer, primarily based on my understanding that they said if the proffer went well, being indicted would be less likely. Otherwise, my indictment would be soon. In other words, talk to these dweebs kind of off the record, because if you don't, they're going to come after you. Another setup. They did not raise FARA issues with me that day or anything about a conflict of interest, the fact that Covington had already filled out the forms wrong. November 16, 2017 was the first day of the proffer session with the special counsel's office. That same evening, after concluding the first proffer, we returned to the Covington offices where my attorneys told me that the first day's proffer did not go well, and then proceeded to walk me through a litany of conceivable charges I was facing and told me that I was looking at possibility of 15 years in prison. Who do you think Covington's working for here? Who do you think? They reiterated the threat of charges against me, my son, as well as the potential of a long-term prison sentence. That evening, we discussed, and they encouraged me to use words and phrases they believed would help me get through the next day proffer and satisfy the special counsel, phrases that are not part of my normal vocabulary. During the second day of the proffer, I used words and phrases that were really not my own voice, and I regret that, just as I regret pleading guilty. People think that a 3-star general must know everything, but I was a fish out of water in a terrifying, completely foreign situation, with none of the legal skills necessary to deal with the many things being thrown at me. I hired the team of the best lawyers I had been told I could find, and I relied on them completely. One of the ways a person becomes a 3-star general is by being a good soldier, taking orders, being part of a team, and trusting the people who provide information and support. Lori, my wife, and I trusted Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony to guide us through the most stressful experience of our lives in a completely incomprehensible situation. I've never felt more powerless. I should have stood my ground firmly for what I knew to be the truth, that I did not lie to the agents, and I should have told this court on December 18, 2018, that I needed to consult new counsel. My relationship with Covington disintegrated soon thereafter. This effort to say what they want approach during the proffer was noted by one of the interviewing agents who stopped me at some point to ask whether what I was saying was something that really happened or whether I was just speculating, analyzing the fact with the benefit of hindsight. I agreed with the agent. I was mostly speculating. To have devoted my life to my country only to be accused of crime, slandered in the media with false and outrageous claims, and have my family threatened was an unimaginable nightmare. One that those who have not walked in these shoes will find difficult to comprehend. Following the 4-day proffer on November 22, 2017, Kellner and Anthony, his deep state attorneys, called my wife and me as we were driving home to Rhode Island to spend Thanksgiving with family to tell me the special counsel's office planned to bring charges and that I should consider a plea. The week leading up to November 30th, 2017, Kellner and Anthony advised that if I did not plead, I would be indicted on multiple counts and that my son, Michael G. Flynn, could also face indictment. They repeated that I would be looking at the potential of 15 years in prison and said that I would be subjected to the, quote, Manafort treatment, end quote. Yeah, that'd be solitary confinement. Yeah. On November 30th, 2017, as plea negotiations with the special counsel office were coming to a head, I reiterated to my former lawyers, specifically Mr. Kellner and Anthony, that I did not believe that I had lied in my White House interview January 24, 2017 with the FBI agents. I reminded them that I had spoken to representatives well over 30 countries, many in a single 24-hour period during that very busy holiday season and presidential transition period. In fact, some of these calls occurred while I was supposedly on, quote, vacation, end quote, out of the country. Although I may have had an incomplete memory of the many details of certain conversations when speaking to the agents, I did not consciously or intentionally lie. During this same day, later in the afternoon, Kellner and Anthony explained their view of how the government would go about proving its case and urged me to accept the plea deal that was on the table. They walked me through the, quote, final 302 in detail. That was the one that had been already edited 4 times by Lisa Page and McCabe. Right. Sidney Powell has pointed that out in the past. They explained if I did not accept the plea deal that I should, quote, expect to be indicted the next day, end quote. Still struggling with the decision whether to plead guilty, I asked my former attorneys to make further inquiry into the special counsel's office prosecutors about whether the FBI agents believed that I had lied to them. In the preceding months leading up to the moment, I had read articles and heard rumors that the agents did not believe that I lied, something I also firmly believed. Now catch this. Mr. Kellner and Mr. Anthony, the guys who were supposedly representing him, right? Who do you think they're going to call here? Who were working for the deep state, left the room to call the special counsel's office prosecutors. Now listen, when they returned, they informed my wife and me that they had been told that, quote, the agents stand by their statements, end quote. Set up? You bet. Because I was then unaware that the agents had made the statements described in this declaration, and because I was unaware of what had passed between my former lawyers and the special counsel's office outside of the room, I then understood them to be telling me that the FBI agents believed I had lied, when in fact they believed he had not. My Covington attorneys counseled me to sign the statement of offense. I agreed to plead guilty that next day, December 1st, 2017, because of the intense pressure from the special counsel's office, which included a threat to indict my son Michael and the lack of crucial information from my counsel. The special counsel's office had already made Michael the subject of their investigation and taken all his files and communications devices, computer, phone, files, thumb drive. At the time, Michael and his wife had a 4-month-old baby. Nonetheless, I would not have pled guilty if my former lawyers had informed me that both agents who interviewed me at the White House on January 24, 2017 had advised that A, I displayed a sure demeanor, and B, I did not give any indication of deception And C, both agents believed there was, quote, no indication that I was lying or that I believed I was lying, end quote. At no time before my plea did my former lawyers explain or disclose this information to me. Had I been informed of these disclosures, I never would have pled guilty. Moreover, I would have expected my Covington counsel to refuse to allow me to plead guilty with that information. I have spent my entire adult life accepting great responsibility. I accepted the plea agreement to stop the pain and threats to my family and accept responsibility for what the government I have defended and served for more than 33 years said I did wrong. However, if my counsel had informed me both agents said I showed, quote, sure demeanor, quote, did not give any indication of deception, end quote, and that I showed, quote, no indication that I was lying or that I believed I was lying, end quote, I would not have signed the plea agreement or entered a plea agreement, a guilty plea. My former lawyers from Covington also assured me on November 30th, 2017, that if I accepted the plea, my son Michael would be left in peace. After I signed the plea, the attorneys returned to the room and confirmed that the special counsel's office would no longer be pursuing my son. It was well after I pled guilty on December 1st, 2017, that I heard or read that agents had stated that they did not believe I had lied during the January 24, 2017 White House interview, and the other information described in this declaration. Still later, I heard a report that former FBI Director and FBI Deputy Director McCabe testified to Congress that the agents did not believe I lied. After learning this information, I reiterated to my former attorneys numerous times that I did not lie to the agents and questioned if I might be able to withdraw my plea. Each time I raised this issue with my former attorneys, they urged me to, right, because they're trying to save their own butts, because they're the ones who filled out the FARA forms wrong. Each time I raised this issue with my former attorneys, they urged me to stick with my plea deal. Quote, it was a good deal, end quote. Or the government would indict me for multiple other offenses and also drag my son back into the crosshairs. Their constant refrain was to, quote, stay on the path, end quote, with the deal that they had negotiated. That got them out of heat too, by the way, right? In the days leading up to the December 18, 2018 sentencing hearing, Robert Kellner, the dude from Covington, and Stephen Anthony, the dude from Covington, sellouts, continued to urge me to, quote, stay on the path, end quote. They predicted correctly that the government would recommend a term of probation and that my son would not be further targeted. However, during the December 2018 hearing, Judge Sullivan's decision to proceed with an extended plea colloquy took both me and my former counsel completely by surprise. They had not prepared me for what had occurred. The court's comments that day stunned me. The entire experience was surreal, and that day was one of the worst days of my life. My Covington attorneys had only prepared me for a simple hearing in which I would be sentenced to probation as the government had agreed. I was not prepared for this court's plea colloquy, much less to decide on the spot whether I should withdraw my plea, consult with independent counsel, or continue to follow my existing lawyer's advice. Prior to the sentencing hearing, they counseled me that if the court were to, listen to this, by the way, if the court asks you, okay. Prior to the sentencing hearing, they counseled me that if the court were to ask me if I wanted to withdraw my plea, I should say, quote, no, because, quote, the court would be giving you the rope to hang yourself, end quote. More great advice. Regretfully, I followed my lawyer's strong advice to confirm my plea, even though it was all I could to not cry out, quote, no, end quote, when this court asked me if I was guilty. During the break in the hearing offered by the court, my former attorneys were as shocked as I was at the colloquy and the way in which the hearing had proceeded. My wife, Lori, counseled me and my attorneys that we should accept the court's offer to postpone sentencing in December of 2018. In late spring 2019, when Covington actually insisted I seek, quote, independent counsel, I did. New counsel, ride to the rescue, phenomenal attorney, Sidney Powell, warrior. New counsel immediately identified the conflict of interest with Covington, and I then terminated Covington. I realized my statement and determination to assert my innocence means the prosecutors who already seek to imprison me may reiterate further seeking additional charges against me and dramatically increase the penalty I face. I express my profound apology to this court, my family, the president, our country, and all who've supported and have had faith in me throughout this incomprehensible ordeal. I tried to accept responsibility by admitting to offenses I understood the government I love and I trusted said I committed. In truth, I never lied. My guilty plea has rankled me throughout this process, and while I allowed myself to succumb to the threats from the government to save my family, I believe that I was grossly misled about what really happened. I will not confirm a plea of guilty I should never have entered. I have served my country honorably all my life and accepted responsibility for myself and others from a young age, as my sister Claire wrote to you in her beautiful letter on behalf of my siblings. As God is my witness, the truth, I am innocent of these charges and any other alleged criminal conduct. I request to withdraw my plea of guilty, and I will fight to restore my good name. To the best of my recollection, the foregoing is true and accurate. Michael T. Flynn. Bottom line, Judge Flynn's sentencing hearing is scheduled for February 27th, 2020. He's not just on trial. All of us are. Judge Sullivan has a choice. He can uphold the rule of law. He can accept this withdrawal of the guilty plea. He should dismiss the case. He should also hammer the prosecutors for egregious governmental misconduct and prosecutorial misconduct. And frankly, I also think Covington and this Kellner character and that other guy, Anthony, to be put on the spit of the rule of law. It's not just General Flynn on trial. It's not just General Flynn's freedom that's on the line. It's yours, it's mine, it's 320 million Americans. This is what the deep state does. They set you up on the outside, they set you up on the inside if you don't play their game. And this information that I presented to you today will never be seen, heard, read, or experienced in the bought-off, lamestream fake media, and that includes Fox. And that's where you come in. You need to network this information to anyone and everyone you know. Because anyone that accepts this as the way this country should be run needs to get out and go to Venezuela or Cuba or back to Stalin's Soviet Union or Mao's China. It's time to stand up. It's time to fight. It's time to fight for the rule of law. And the way we fight is by outing what the deep state has done to patriots, not just General Flynn, not just Donald Trump, but to every American, how they've tried to strip us of our freedoms and liberties. Network this information. That's how we fight them. And that's how we beat the deep state. Expose these scum for what they've done. I hope you'll join us on the radio show every Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern. Great guests, great analysis. I hope you join us at davejanda.com. I hope you become a subscriber. Without the subscribers, this YouTube channel goes away, the radio show goes away, the website goes away. It's that simple. It's the best investment you'll make. Get rid of your cable bill at $100-some a month. Best $9 you'll ever spend. I guarantee it. Try it for a month. If you don't like it, get rid of it. I'm not sure why. Because we give you information the deep state does not want you to know. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Thanks for your time today. Dream big and dare to fight and dare to win.